Yesterday, I broke my camera.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, Ricky. Oh, so sorry.
I was really excited to show my friend my new lens. Super excited, but then Butterfingers over here let the camera slip down and I literally broke the camera.
I'm so sorry, Ricky. Oh.
But after a little grieving, put on the green screen suit, called up Sony, and they said to send it over. We'll try to fix it as best we can with the lowest price possible. So that's cool. And there's a lesson in that. You can't really dwell on bad things in life. You just gotta move on. Because dwelling, I think, is the actual true problem because it wastes a lot of time from finding a solution right away. So I figured this would be a perfect opportunity to talk about which kind of camera to get if you're still looking around to get a camera, especially if you're a first-time filmmaker or photographer. Now, there is no perfect camera. There's no such thing. It does not exist. But the budget you have will determine what kind of camera to get. So I came up with 4 cameras, each with a different budget price point. And so let's start with the first one. So if you've got a $500 budget, the first camera that comes to mind is the Canon P6. It's a very basic camera, and the reason why I wanted to choose that is that it's easy to use. It's pretty much all ready to go right out of the box. The cool thing about this camera is that it also has Wi-Fi, so you can connect the camera to your phone. So if you take a photo, you can send your photo from the camera to your phone right away and share it to Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all that stuff too. And it's also good for photographers trying to do video because it can do both pretty well. The lens is okay. It's not the best lens, but it's a good start. The good thing about the Canon cameras is that you can actually upgrade your lens, not necessarily the camera body, but if you focus on upgrading the lens, then you can make your photos a lot better, make your videos a lot better. And so for $500, it's pretty good.
What if I have $1,000? What can I get?
If you got $1,000 to spend, then I would recommend the Sony a6300 plus the 16-50 lens because it's under $1,000 and you get 4K. It's a little bit of a learning curve. It's a lot different than the Canon systems, but once you understand the mechanics and how it works, then it becomes pretty easy, just like anything else. The good thing about this camera is that it's 4K up to 30 frames per second and 120 frames a second in full HD. The best part about that camera is the size. It's perfect to put in your shoulder bag. It's great for travel filmmakers and photographers, vloggers, just because of the form factor. It's pretty amazing. The only thing I don't like about that camera is the battery life. It's really bad, like bad. After like 15 minutes of recording 4K straight, maybe even 10 minutes, it just powers off. You gotta open the battery door and let it cool off for a couple of minutes for it to continue on. But other than that, it's great. I love it, really good for photos. The lens that comes with it is actually pretty good. It's a 16 to 50 millimeter lens, but it has Power IS. A lot better than Canon's image stabilization, but it's like this small, almost a pancake lens. It's perfect for, like super duper run and gun stuff, and it's just a fantastic camera to begin, especially if you decide to go to the 4K route. So for $1,000, 4K, 120 frames a second in HD, the Sony a6300 is an awesome camera and the best bang for your buck for 4K.
But I have more money!
So if you have a $2,000 budget for a camera, I would recommend the Sony a6500 plus the Sony 18 to 105 millimeter lens. It's the camera that I just broke the other day. I love that thing. It's basically a better version of the Sony a6300, except it has in-body image stabilization and it doesn't overheat. So putting this camera on a gimbal or glide cam is perfect because you don't even have to touch the focus. It just does it for you. It's pretty awesome. The great thing about the Sony E-mount system is that there are adapters out there where you can include other lenses. So if you came from a Canon background, you can use any Canon lens and attach it to the camera. Personally, I like using native lenses, especially the Sony 18 to 105. That lens is amazing. It is sharper than the Canon 24-105 Mark I, and it has OSS, that's optical steady shot, and it's much steadier than Canon's image stabilization. And so you combine that with the in-body image stabilization system and you have dual image stabilization, dual. And so you can pretty much handhold this thing and you don't even see any shake. You can fake glide cam shots, you can fake gimbal shots. All the zoom is internal, so the lens won't come out or in, and that way you don't mess up the balance of your glide cam or gimbal. So that's pretty darn incredible, and it's pretty light too. So that is my absolute favorite combo, the Sony a6500 plus the Sony 18 to 105 lens for $2,000. If you're not a fan of Sony and you are a die-hard Canon fan, for $2,000 you can get the Canon 80D plus the 24-105 STM lens. I know I'm throwing it out there because it's not 4K, I get it, but the great thing about that camera is that it has dual pixel autofocus. It's incredible, very intuitive, much better than Sony's. It does have a flip out screen, so it's perfect for vloggers. It also has a touchscreen, so it's perfect to touch to focus. The good thing about this particular lens that I'm recommending, the 24-105, it's not the L series lens, it's actually an STM, and what STM stands for is stepping motor, which means that whenever the camera tries to focus, you won't hear the sounds of the lens trying to figure out where the focus is. It does it silently, and that's amazing, especially if you're shooting a wedding. And actually, I would recommend this camera to photographers that happen to do some films. If you're focusing more on photography, this is great because you can attach an L series lens like a 70-200, get some killer shots while still doing some awesome video, though 1080, but good 1080, it's fine, it's absolutely fine. So for $2,000, that's pretty good. So that's it, $2,000 Canon 80D plus the 24-105, or the Sony a6500 plus the Sony 18-105 lens.
Can't wait to see it.
Gotta drink my cup of tea. And finally, if you have a $3,500 budget, the camera that I would recommend is the Panasonic GH4. That camera is gorgeous. It's pretty much a combination of a Canon and Sony meshed into one. If they made a baby, that would be it. It records 4K, 422, 10-bit internally. And even though it records at 150 megabytes a second, you can still color grade a little bit better than an 8-bit footage, especially in the sky where you don't see too much banding. The camera also has a flip out screen, just like the Canon 80D, which is awesome, good for vloggers. It does have autofocus. For video, it's not very good at all. You can touch the focus and it'll tract somewhat okay, but the autofocus for photography is phenomenal, super fast. The body of the camera is rough. I dropped that camera twice and it didn't make any dents, any scuffs. Unlike my Sony a6500, which pretty much shattered, this camera is robust and meant to survive in the most extreme conditions. The only thing I don't like about this camera is the micro four thirds system, because that sensor is pretty small, so you'd have to get an adapter like Metabone Speed Booster, and there are two versions of that. You can get the Ultra, which is a 0.74 crop factor, or the XL, which is a 0.64 crop factor. I recommend the 0.64 because it actually expands your field of view. For example, if you have a lens that's a 35mm focal length, you have to multiply that by 2 because of the micro four thirds system, which is a 70mm, and then multiply that by 0.64, which is roughly a 45mm. So one of the things I forgot to mention about the GH4 is the in-body image stabilization, which is phenomenal. Better than Canon's, better than Sony's, and let's face it, most of us don't have gimbals or glide cams, and the camera is all we have. So having an in-body image stabilization on the sensor is so helpful for run and gun shoots. It's perfect for lenses that don't have image stabilization like the Sigma 18-35, and you can pretty much fake glide cam or gimbal shots if you know how to do it right. I even made a video about how to fake gimbal and glide cam shots, and you can check out that video with a link below. I also forgot to mention my recommendation for lens for this camera, and that's the Sigma 18-35 art lens. That lens is superbly sharp, and it has a constant f1.8 from 18 to 35. And the cool thing about that lens, just like the Sony 18-105, is that the barrel of the lens doesn't come out. It's all internal. It's a heavy lens and somewhat lengthy, but the images that it can produce for that price point, it's really good. And so the GH4 plus Metabones plus Sigma 18-35, ultimate combo for $3,500. Right, back to the Green Man. Now, I know I just gave you a rundown of each camera based on what I find most valuable. You can look it up on YouTube as far as pros and cons for each. There's so many to choose from. Really, it depends on your taste and what you're going for. If you're a travel photographer, filmmaker, then maybe the GH4 isn't for you, and the smaller camera like the Sony a6000, a6300, or a6500 might be better suited for your purposes. If you're a vlogger, maybe the Canon 80D because of the flip out screen. If you do short films or music videos or documentary work, then the GH4 is the camera for you. So really, it all depends on what you're going for, but more importantly, what you've set yourself as a budget, that should ultimately determine what kind of camera for you to get. And also, camera are just tools. It all comes back down to the filmmaker. Story is what matters. Like, I don't have a camera right now. I'm borrowing a camera in the meantime. I'm filming with a Canon 6CD with the 18 to 55 kit lens, but I know this video is gonna be good content because of the value it's gonna provide for you guys. And so ultimately, that's what it's about. It's always about the story. So anyway, thanks for watching. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram and Twitter, and I'll catch you later. All right, babe, dance me out.